Good morning. I'm Harley Schlanger from the LaRouche Organization with your daily video update for June 27th, 2023. Let me begin by making a very tough statement, which is that we are now in one of the most dangerous moments in modern world history. The developments in Russia last week are a part of a continuing escalation, a desire on behalf of the Western establishment to destabilize and the Putin regime, to overthrow him, to break up Russia, to continue the war, to continue an escalation against China. And the most dangerous aspect of it is two states of mind of the Western populations: either denial about the true danger, the true threat that we could end up in a nuclear war, or resignation, the idea there's nothing that can be done. Now, if you just look at the coverage in the media of the so-called Prigozhin or Wagner revolt, you'll see triumphalism, the kind that comes from winning a war. But it's not just wishful thinking. It is proof of the intent behind it. Look at some of the headlines. The beginning of the end for Putin. The Economist, the disintegration of Russia. Others say that this could be, Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung, Putin is naked. The Times of London, prepare for a sudden collapse of Russia. And there are others that are saying this is a Putin false flag. It's an effort by Putin to consolidate his control of his power in Russia, and so on. Now, think back to March 26, 2022, when Joe Biden gave a speech in Warsaw. And at some point in the speech, he blurted out about Putin, "For God's sake, this man cannot remain in power," unquote. Now, immediately after he said that, his handlers in the State Department came out and said, "Oh no, he didn't mean that Putin should go. He's not calling for regime change." And it was the classic example of an attempt to walk back, to make it look as though Biden had blundered in what he said. In reality, he was expressing what's being discussed in NATO circles: getting rid of Putin and breaking up Russia. The idea of regime change in Russia is what was behind the refusal to negotiate in December 2021, when Putin raised the question of the threat of NATO and his desire to have new security guarantees. What's clear is that the West intends to continue the war. They believe that last week's events in Russia show that Putin is weak, that he can be toppled, and that Russia itself is weak. Now, we have, just as a counter to that, a statement from a leading analyst, Dmitri Trenin, who writes that the US and its allies are playing Russian roulette. He said the US leadership has come to believe that Russia would not use nuclear weapons. So he said that the idea of a nuclear strike is unlikely, and therefore they believe they can push as far as they can. He said this means they will not only not negotiate, but will continue to escalate. Now, this coincides with reports coming from Russia that they're looking into the idea that there's some support for Prigozhin and Wagner from Western intelligence, from Ukraine, from oligarchs in London, and so on. Now, all of this is occurring at a moment where the so-called Ukrainian offensive is gaining a few centimeters of land here and there, capturing a small village here and there. The weapons flow is continuing, even though the NATO countries are running out of weapons. But there's another element here you have to pay attention to. The head of Ukrainian military intelligence, Budyanov, said that they have evidence that Russia is planning to blow up the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, that they have planted mines in the cooling towers, that they're set to blow it up, and that this would unleash nuclear radiation throughout Europe. And right on cue, we have from Lindsey Graham and Senator Blumenthal of Connecticut a statement saying that if there is an attack on Zaporizhzhia, this should be seen as an Article 5 issue for NATO. In other words, NATO should therefore join in and become part of the war, as if they're not already part of the war. Now, all of this is occurring in an environment that you're not being told about, which is the consolidation of a new global financial system by the nations of the global south working together with such institutions as the BRICS. And remember, the BRICS, it's Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. The emergence of the payment systems and national currencies, the so-called de-dollarization, all of this is moving very rapidly. And it doesn't have to be an attack on the United States and the West, but the United States and the West, by asserting their insistence that the unipolar order must remain in place, that is, that all economic policy must go through London and Washington. Therefore, they must crush this. And how are they going to crush this? Well, that's where the war danger comes from. I should point out that Sergei Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister, when asked about the charge that Russia is about to blow up the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, said this is, quote, utter nonsense, unquote. This is, quote, information warfare, unquote, that Ukraine is getting from its Western allies, including London and NATO. Now, on the consolidation of the global South, there's been very strong momentum for that in just the last days. President Lula of Brazil met with President Ramaphosa of South Africa in Paris. They had an extensive discussion. Yesterday, Argentine President Fernandez met with Lula in Brazil. Modi of India, after leaving the United States, went to meet with the Egyptians, and Egypt is one of the newest countries applying for membership in the BRICS. So the moves toward a new development architecture are very serious, and they're seen as an existential threat in Washington, Wall Street, and London. The idea of a new strategic and development architecture coming into being is a casus belli, a cause for war for the Western leaders. And so what they are reacting to is the decline of the unipolar order internationally. And what's their immediate response? Go after the countries they think are the most significant in building this counter system, namely Russia and China. And the Ukraine war is the way of targeting Russia. The attempt to create an Asian NATO or a global NATO involving Japan, Australia, trying to win India into that, that's their targeting of China. And as we can see, they have these delusions that they can pull off a regime change in Russia. This is one of the most dangerous ideas that's ever come across any desk in the State Department or the Pentagon. There are probably people who are resistant to it, but none of them are speaking out. So we have to speak out. The American people, the people of Western Europe, the people of Eastern Europe, the people of Africa, of South America, of Asia, have to speak out against the strike being run through the unipolar order against Russia and China. And this is why we're building an international peace coalition, which is not just against war, not just against nuclear war. Anyone who's sane is against nuclear war, although there are people in the Defense Department, the intelligence community, and others who have been talking about nuclear war since the 50s and 60s. But we, the people who will be the ones who are incinerated in the first blasts of a nuclear war, we must let our voices be heard. Now, tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, I'll be interviewing Helga Zepp-LaRouche, and you'll have an opportunity to discuss with her both your questions and your ideas. And you can send those to us at questions@schillerinstitute.com. I hope you'll take advantage of this, and I hope you take seriously what I said at the outset. This is not hype. This is not scare talk, scaremongering. It's reality. We're crossing the Rubicon, the way the West is treating the Prigozhin revolt. And even though things are calm in Moscow and the situation overall is calm, underneath it, there's an incredible buildup of tension that threatens the lives of everyone on the planet. Hello, thanks for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of our videos. Support our independence to produce videos like these. Become a member of the LaRouche organization at thelarouche.org/member. By becoming a member for $25 or more, you'll get special access to the EIR Alert Daily Briefing and Weekly Magazine, which is what I read to stay on top of things.